Hello,
everyone. We'll be talking here about the Voynich Manuscript, comparing it to other encrypted books. I am Dunin. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., specifically Rockville, Maryland. I am an author and crypto enthusiast, a game developer, and a management consultant. And my co-speaker.
I'm Klaus Schmeh. I'm a German computer scientist, crypto expert, crypto history enthusiast, and book author.
And together we're going to be speaking about the Voynich Manuscript, comparing it with other encrypted books and seeing if we can draw some conclusions with respect to its purpose. So we had to define what a book is for this. So we decided it had to be something that had some heft to it. So not just one page, had to be at least about 20 pages and have some significant portion that was encrypted. And it had to potentially be bound as a book. So it was one or more of these categories. It could have been something that was referred to by its author as a book. And it had to be something that was not obviously something different, a letter or a postcard, a telegram, and such. So Klaus on his own had been quietly compiling lists or a long list of encrypted books. And when I heard about this, my astronomy background brought me to immediately the thought of the Messier catalog in astronomy. The astronomer Messier, he was not trying to make a list of every interesting object in the sky. He was trying to make a list of things that were not comets so that he wouldn't have to spend time looking at them later. So even today, we look at things and we think of things like the Orion Nebula is M42, or the Pleiades are M45 from the list. So in Klaus's list, the Voynich manuscript is there at 00001, and then we the other objects he's put on the list kind of are numbered from there.
Okay, so let's take a look at the creation time of the books on the encrypted book list. And you see that the oldest books on this list are from the 15th century. 6 were created at that time. And then the number of encrypted books created per century increases with a peak in the 20th century. 36 books were created in these 100 years. And I'm sure that there will be a new record in the 21st century. We still have 78 years of time. And this overview also shows that the Voynich manuscript, which was probably created in the 15th century, is one of the oldest encrypted books we know of. Let's look at a few highlights from the encrypted book list. So, as Ilonka said, the number 1 is the Voynich manuscript. The number 2 is probably also known to many of you, the Rohonk Codex. The next one is James Hampton's notebook, also well known to crypto enthusiasts. The Kasse Zauberhandschrift is a German book, and so on. I think the number 13, the Codex Copiale, it hit the news about 10 years ago or so when it was broken by Kevin Knight and a few others. So some of you might know this too. And there are others. So altogether we have 180 books on the list so far. It's also interesting to look at the unbroken books on the list. Only 15 are still unbroken, which isn't very much considering that there are almost 120 on the list. And you can see them here, of course. The top left book, the Voynich manuscript, is unbroken, and a few others are unbroken too.
So as we categorize the books on the list, we found that the largest category at the top there was diaries. 40 of the things that we found that were encrypted to some specific degree were diaries. And then the next largest category was secret society books. We have 23 there, though the Freemasons were actually kind of encryption crazy. So there are many more Freemason books that are on the list so far. We kind of had to draw the line at some point. Many are still in their libraries. And then there are 11 books that we categorized as knowledge books, 8 as literature, 8 created as puzzle books, 8 as art, 7 as obvious hoaxes, 6 as religious books, 4 as notebooks, and then 3 that we haven't figured out how to categorize, with the Voynich Manuscript being one of those 3. So starting with the top one, the encrypted diaries, there are, as we said, 40 of them. And here are 5 of the better known. I won't be going to all of them in detail, but there is more information on these in the actual paper. So Beatrix Potter, well known for writing works such as Tales of Peter Rabbit, she created her own encryption system when she was a teenager, and then went on to maintain a diary for many, many years of her life. And this has all since then been transcribed and decrypted, and there's some really interesting work there that's been done. Now, Charles Wesley, he maintained an encrypted diary. He was one of the founders of the Methodist movement. Then there's Anne Lister. Her diaries, she wrote millions of words in her diary. She was quite the writer. And her work has actually been included in the UNESCO Memory of the World program, because she was writing about not just about what she was seeing in the world around her, but also her sexuality. So she was one of the first people to, as UNESCO says, she wrote, it was a comprehensive and painfully honest account of lesbian life and reflections on her nature. And this really makes her diaries unique, and they have continued to shape the direction of women's history and the gender studies, especially that are being done in the United Kingdom. Then there is Donald Hill. He kept an encrypted diary. He was a prisoner of war in World War II and wanted to keep a diary that could not be read by his captors. So he disguised it to look like mathematical tables. Then there's Noah John Rondeau. He was a hermit who spent decades away from humans. And even though he was away from humans, he also wanted a diary that could be further kept secret. And so he encrypted a diary as well. And these are the diaries that are on the list. This is in the order that Klaus chose to add them to the list. So is the Voynich Manuscript a diary? Well, probably not. Having illustrations would be atypical for a diary. Most people, especially as they're encrypting a diary, are focusing on the encryption, not wanting to both write and to also create illustrations. Also, there's almost no visible corrections in the Voynich Manuscript. Some might say that there are no corrections. Others point out that maybe there's a couple small corrections. Whereas in a diary, you will see crossouts and erasures and stuff like that. And then a very important criterion is dates. Most diaries have dates, and the Voynich Manuscript really has no dates that are visible. And the encryption systems of the diaries that are on the encrypted book list, diaries really use simple encryption systems. Almost all will be simple substitutions. Some might use abbreviation systems. There are exceptions, for example, Donald Hill's diary, which is in a very special circumstance, but they are all things that have since been decrypted.
Let's now look at secret society books. As Ilonka already mentioned, quite many of these books were created by the Freemasons, who encrypted a lot and created a lot of ritual descriptions which were encrypted. But there are also the Oddfellows. They created one of the books on the list, or the Association of Maiden Unity and Attachment, or the Black Gangster Disciples, or the Oculists. So as you see, encrypted society books were quite common. And on the next slide, you will see the list with the secret society books marked. And now the question, of course, is the Voynich Manuscript a secret society book too? And again, we would say no, because illustrations in the Voynich Manuscript don't fit with a secret society book at all, or at least we haven't seen anything that looks, that comes even close to these illustrations in the Voynich Manuscript. And then a very important argument, the oldest secret society book on our list is from the 18th century. If we assume that the Voynich Manuscript was created in the 15th century, it is simply too old to be a secret society book. And then the secret society books on the encrypted book list all use either a simple substitution or an abbreviation code, and apparently this is not the case for the Voynich Manuscript. So all in all, we can say it's very unlikely that the Voynich Manuscript is a secret society book. We also ruled out a couple of other categories. For example, we don't think that it's a notebook. We don't think that it's a religious book, or we don't think that it's literature or art. And we also ruled out a puzzle book. We can't go into detail here, but we used similar arguments as on the previous slides.
And then we come to the category of knowledge books. And here, anyone familiar with the Voynich Manuscript can easily see that there is a visual similarity. We have here 3 that we're providing examples of, but there are 8 more on the list. And this is again, the order that Klaus learned of them and chose to add them to the list. So is the Voynich Manuscript a knowledge book? Well, it does have this mix of illustrations and text. So that's correct. And then the illustrations tend to be of things that are of machines or things from the natural world. And the encryptions, similar to other knowledge books, are in an unknown script. The other knowledge books tend to use unknown scripts as well. And it is written in a way that it looks to be teaching or describing something. So all of those make it look like, yes, a knowledge book is possible. Then we have the category of hoaxes, books that were written to clearly fool someone. And we have 3 examples here, 4 more are on the list. But again, it seems that it's possible that the Voynich Manuscript might fit there. Here's where they've been added to the list. So is the Voynich Manuscript a hoax? Well, there were hoaxes, other hoax books that already existed in the 15th and 16th centuries, so the age check is okay. The Voynich Manuscript, as with the other hoaxes, has never been deciphered. The illustrations do not make any sense. They're nonsensical things. The naked women in the Voynich Manuscript definitely make it look more interesting, and the foldouts also make the manuscript look more interesting. So, and this again ties into the possibility of it being a hoax. And we do have more information in the paper, but for now, we'll just say that yes, a hoax is possible.
And now let's look at disguised books. Disguised books are not a category in the list Ilonka introduced, but in several categories, disguised books are contained. For example, the Steganographia, it looks like a book about magic, but in fact, it's just nothing. It's just a collection of encrypted messages that don't make much sense. Or the Kasse Zauberhandschrift, it clearly looks Arabian, but when Arabian experts looked at it, they immediately saw that this was just a disguise. Or Ancient Mysteries, to me, it looks like a work of fiction, maybe like a novel or a poetry book, but in reality, it is a secret society book. And Real Key Cryptogram is a book that that's not, that it's actually a book about a German poet, and it contains these encrypted, these sequences. And finally, Donald Hill's diary, as Ilonka mentioned, is disguised as a collection of mathematical tables. And now the obvious question is the Voynich Manuscript a disguised book as well? Of course, it could be something disguised as a knowledge book about plants, astrology, and bathing, and in reality, it's something completely different. But all in all, we don't think so. For example, the high number of illustrations make the book look more conspicuous than it would be necessary. The naked women and the fold-outs and the large plants also look quite conspicuous, but this would not be necessary, and this is something somebody would avoid if he disguises a book as a knowledge book. So all in all, we don't have a proof, but we think that a disguised book is not very likely in the case of the Voynich Manuscript. And then another interesting hypothesis is that the Voynich Manuscript was created by a mentally ill person. So many people over the last 10 years or so have made me aware of the Prinzhorn collection, which is an art collection, and all the paintings included were created by mentally ill persons. And if you look at these examples, there's a certain similarity to the Voynich manuscript. So, as I said, it's a very interesting hypothesis. It would be now very interesting to compare the Voynich manuscript with other books created by mentally ill persons. The only problem is that on our list, no book of this kind is contained. So it would make sense to compare the Voynich manuscript with paintings from this collection, but this is not, or this is out of scope today.
And a couple other statistics here. The number of authors. So of the books on the list where we know how many authors made that work, all of them that we know of were created by a single author. That's 75 of them. 43 we still don't know. And in terms of gender of author, of those where we know, 67 of those were created by a male author, 8 by a female author. All 8 of those are diaries. And again, 43 where we don't know. So allowing for the fact that there's a large percentage that we still don't know, of the ones where we do know, it's likely that to say that the Voynich manuscript was created by a male author, by one author. We are aware of research that is being done to try and figure out if there might have been more than one author by looking at handwriting styles and other things. But in terms of our own research, we are saying that it is most likely that it is a single author. So conclusion, our comparisons provide some evidence for saying that the purpose of the Voynich manuscript is either a hoax or a knowledge book, or possibly written by a mentally ill person. That it was created by one author, a male author, and it was not created as a disguised book to disguise some other purpose. And that's it. And we are ready for questions.